Hey, everybody, Dr. Meri Crouley for Now is the Time. We've got an amazing program today with Larry Ballard, who is the author of Liberty Crusade. And we're going to be talking and doing a really deep dive into what the tariffs are, the history of them, and also how this is going to affect the country and you with some of these different things that President Trump is initiating right now. But before we do that, today's program is sponsored by the Root Brands. There's a great product called the Trinity Pack that this commercial is all about. Let's roll that, please.
Hi, my name is Dr. Christina Rahm, and I am a scientist, but before I was a scientist, I was actually a psychologist. I learned a lot about neurotransmission, and then when I became a scientist, I started noticing and researching how people got sad, how people became angry, how they were stressed, how they were anxious. Heavy metals in our environment, environmental stressors, as well as parasites, as well as fungus, all of these things add up to a world and environment that is toxic. You know, when you have heavy metals and nuclear waste in the land, air, and water, it doesn't even leave the stratosphere. In fact, a mother passes these on to her child in the stomach. So we have compounded this over time. That was one of the reasons that I created the Trinity, which was clean slate, to really eradicate things out of the body, restore, to help restore nutrients into the body, and zero in. Zero in was really one of my gifts as a psychologist and a scientist. There were certain ingredients like turmeric, curcumin, aloe vera. There were certain things like L-theanine, L-arginine that could really help people. There are a lot of ingredients, and I've worked with all of them. But I finally was able to work on a formula that I really think is the best that's out there. It's something that really helps the body because it supports the neurotransmission through natural ingredients. I wanted solutions for all the people that I had seen as a psychologist that had issues. Zero in was definitely my answer to that. I personally take one in the morning, and it's an adaptogenic, so it really adapts to different people, like personalized medicine. I hope you try it. It's something that goes along with the Trinity, or it's something you can take alone, but it is something that can help in numerous areas of your life.
You know, when I first interviewed Dr. Christina Rahm actually a couple of years ago, it's very amazing because a lot of people are now have, they have graphene oxide and different things in their blood, and they didn't even take the jab. But I take the Root Brands every day. And when I first started, I ended up ordering the Trinity Pack, which is clean slate, it's zero in and restore. And that's what initially started. The products are about $200 for all three, but if you sign up for the Root Prime, you get free shipping. It's like Amazon Prime, and you get free shipping after the second month. And then you can change your order. Minimally, I get the clean slate every month. So go to therootbrands.com/now is the time. You sign up for your own affiliate link. It's free. And then you shop, and you'll get a good discount, as well as share it with other people. And you'll get credit for when you share it. So it's a really good thing to do. I take it every day, and I know that it's helping clean my blood and keep me, safe and healthy. So anyway, Larry, good to have you on today. How are you?
I'm good, Meri. How are you?
Great. Well, this is Resurrection Week. People might see this after, I don't really call it Easter anymore because it was based on Ishtar. But, people know it as Easter, but I call it Resurrection Week, Resurrection Sunday, Good Friday. That's this week. So it's a very significant time to be alive. And so anyway, there's a QR code up here. What is this, Larry? This is for your new book.
No, she's popped up a slide. We're not ready for that. I'll shout when we're ready. So don't put any slides up for right now. Let us just kind of get acquainted, set the stage, and when I need something, I'll shout out. How's that?
Okay, sounds good. Anyway, well, Larry, we're going to be talking about tariffs today, and what is a tariff, Larry, and what is the history behind the tariffs? I think there's been a lot of confusion. I mean, I've talked to people that really are kind of in the know, at least about some of the things going into the country, and the tariff situation has really puzzled many people. So what is a tariff, Larry?
Well, do you have any memberships like the Costco or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay, so you pay a membership fee and you can shop at Costco and get access to their products, right?
Yeah.
Well, the media wants us to think that it's a very simple thing. It's just a tax on the American people, and it's going to hurt us, and we're going to have to pay more for all kinds of goods. That's not what a tariff is. A tariff is kind of like a membership. So you're China, or you're Russia, or you're some other country, and you want access to the largest economy in the world, the United States of America, 25 plus trillion dollars. Well, you pay an access fee. And that access fee is called a tariff. And in some countries, they call them value added tax. It was a raw material before, it's manufactured, it now comes out. And so you're paying a tax as it leaves as a wholesale product. And then you're taxed on this side as a consumer for a sales tax. So it's just a tax, but it's not what people have been led to believe by the media. It's not this thing that's going to bankrupt us, that's going to cause you to pay massive amounts of money. For example, they say food's going to go up. Well, actually, food prices have been going down. They say oil's going to go up. Oil's been going down. Now they say cars is going to go up. Cars probably will. We're in a bit of a battle to find out dominance on the automobile industry. We were the dominant player in automobiles, and now we have massive tariff blocks against us. And so we've lost a lot of our manufacturing in the auto industry. We're bound and determined to get it done. Why I'm doing this show is because the polls, if you can believe them, and I don't, say that the people, because of this issue, are turning against Trump and his popularity is dropping. So I want us to basically understand tariffs, and I want us to be able to see it through the right lens and understand it is what made America great. So this is the second half of the question that you asked. Let's go back. As you know, everything I do is rooted in history and the Bible and current events. So here we go. So basically, America didn't have a central banking system when it was founded. It had a simple sales tax. That's all. And basically ran the whole country on that and tariffs. And when we started to get big and wanted to get out from under the debt trap that was imposed on us by Britain, by the colonial empire, that basically think of them as the China of the past. So basically, they basically did trade with every nation in the world and undercut them, and it eventually would drive them into bankruptcy. And that's what China is doing us today. They basically.
Well, and just to interject, Larry, remember, looking back at history from what I remember, the Boston Tea Party, wasn't that they didn't want to pay the taxes?
Yes.
You know, that they ended up throwing all the tea overboard. It was kind of a revolt against England because of their heavy taxation.
Yeah, but there was a little different wrinkle there than here, because they were saying no taxation without representation. We were a colony, and they wanted to have the rights that we now have as citizens in this country. So that's kind of tariffs in the past. But basically, what did we do that made us the greatest nation in the world? It was tariffs. So the year is 1871, and America has come out of the Civil War bankrupt. And they said, we've got to do something. And so what they did is they imposed massive tariffs on England, and the American people couldn't afford to buy their products. That sounds dire, but actually it was the best thing that ever happened to America, because what it did is it cost us to develop the Industrial Revolution. You cannot be a major manufacturing leader and a major superpower if you don't have raw materials to manufacture goods with, the technology to build it, and the ability to transfer it, which is trade. That converts into money. So the genesis of all money comes from natural resources developed into products and sold in the open market. So what we did to England is we said, okay, we're going to boycott you, basically, and we developed the Transcontinental Railroad. What did that do? That gave us access to our timber, to our coal, to our oil, to all the proliferation of natural resources, the cornucopia of resources that America has. Now what do we need? We needed manufacturing. So what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. So what did we do? We developed the assembly line. We developed the automobile. We developed the telephone and a whole proliferation of other things. And we did something the world had never seen done before. We shared those technologies with the world. We didn't hoard them. So as the innovators of those technologies, America prospered. And then we shared that railroad technology with all the nations around the world so they could get out from under the British Empire as well, so they could get access to their resources. And then they innovated just like we did, using many of the innovations that we had developed as the now developers of the Industrial Revolution, and their economies began to prosper. And so the whole world was prospering. And I'm just going to give a footnote here until the British said, we can't have this. And they orchestrated World War I. But basically, it was tariffs on the 100th year anniversary of America, 1871. We held a centennial conference, and 10 million people from around the world came to see the marvels of the American Industrial Revolution. And we made an announcement. We said, we are proud to announce that America, the youngest nation in the world, is today, as a result of tariffs, the wealthiest nation in the world. 34 years we had basically had tariffs on Europe, on England in particular, and we had become out of slavery. England had a 300-year head start on us, and was the nation that the sun never set on. And we surpassed them in 34 short years, and the key was tariffs. So that's what a tariff is, and that's what it did for us before, and that's what Donald Trump knows, and that's what it can do it for us again, but it took 34 years before. We're not going to do it in a month. We're not going to do it in 6 months.
Yeah, and just to interject, I mean, it's also a law of the kingdom when you give, like as we shared our technologies and didn't try to hoard it, says in the word of God, give and it will be given unto you. So that's what God, Jesus talked about the kingdom. And, even in our Father, for thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory. So we're starting to see a lot of things exposed around the world, people, in particular with some of the trafficking and this and that. We're going to see, I believe, the greatest time to be alive is right now. So, let's go back, Larry, also. How did America lose its manufacturing to China? When did that happen? Give us a little lesson on that.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to use a different term. Everybody who tries to understand what's going on geopolitically thinks of nations: China, America, Russia, Iran, Japan, etc. The nations of the world haven't been sovereign for decades, hundreds of years, because basically we're all controlled. Our governments have been taken over by a central banking system that prints money out of nothing and creates a debt. So the very first dollar ever created a debt obligation in the form of a treasury note, and the second bill, the second, third, the fourth, and that debt just keeps going up and up until finally we can't afford to service it anymore, and it collapses and the cycle begins again. So what I want people to think of is not what did China do, not what did we do. It is what have the global elite done to literally every nation in the world. Because if you think of it that way, then you can understand what's going on, because a lot of times things are done, they're not in the best interest of the United States or China or whatever. So anyway, your question specifically dates back to the election of Carter. And Nixon started it, but then he got impeached. Well, actually, I guess he left voluntarily under pressure. But anyway, basically, we opened up trade with China. China joined the World Trade Organization, and all the money in the world, because the global elite have the money. They control the trade, the manufacturing, and all the money that comes with it. So basically, they were funneling massive amounts of money into China, and the specific goal was to take manufacturing away from the United States, gut our manufacturing base so that we would become subservient to them, because they knew that the one nation in the world that could block their power was the United States. So what happened is we opened up trade with them, and the money went in, and then they set up these tariffs and other restrictions. And basically, I think I can say this with a straight face, we built China. It was our money. It was money that was taken from us through tariffs and through other things. Now might be a good time to bring up that first slide that you had up there, and I'll break this down. So no, the one, there you go. So this is what I really want you to understand. So basically, people think the tariff is going to be a tax and it's going to break us. So I want to break this down. We now have a $25 trillion GDP. Our deficit, our national debt is 36 trillion, and it's increasing by about $2 trillion a year. And you can already feel the pressure. We're already at a point where people are struggling just to buy the basics. So I want to look at that scenario versus what the tariffs are going to do to you short term, but versus what they're going to do to you or for you long term. So short term, yes, there's going to be some pain. Yes, the stock market's going to vacillate up and down, and there may be some sort of a collapse, but I guarantee you it'll come back quick. But here's what tariffs are doing. When we get $36 trillion, that is normally paid for out of your federal income tax. But we've reached the point that the national debt is so high that we can't. And by the way, just to give you an idea what that means, for the average person, you pay about 35% of your total income to the Fed in the form of income tax. And most of you have to work until almost the end of April to pay the federal income tax. So the first 4 months of the year are, you might as well not even count it. You didn't see a penny of it. But here's what's happening. Because of that debt is now so high, they can't service the debt just with the Federal Reserve. So guess what they do? They raise taxes, all of the other myriad of taxes they raise. So what are the Democrats doing right now? Trump came in. This is one of the lies they inflict on us. And when he was in his first term, he made the lowest tax reductions of any president, surpassing Reagan, who had previously lowered the taxes. And the Dems said, "Oh, you're taxing the poor people, the middle class, to benefit the elite." No, that's not what happens. And they said we're going to go bankrupt. No, we brought more money in during that time because what? When you lower the taxes, the general public has more money to spend. There's more fluidity in the marketplace. And so when he lowered the taxes, actually more money came into the government than before. Now, what do they want to do now? That tax cut is up for renewal, and the Democrats are trying to get it from being renewed. What Trump really needs to do, and this is one of the things we need to know so we can help him, we need to get that tax renewed. And even more than that, we need to get it made permanent. And I want to give you a couple of financial pieces so that you can understand the gravity of what we're doing. But first of all, let's go through the rest of this slide. So taxes are going up, up, up. So now you're not paying 35%, you're paying a whole lot more. And then if you want to really understand what a tariff is, then you have to look at that slide that says steamrollers. So what do? China basically is notorious for subsidizing key manufacturing, oil, steel, tool and die making, to the point that they literally drive entire industries out of the market because we're not competing on a level playing field. They might be putting 25-30% subsidy on these products on top of the tariffs. And then over to the other side, Canada does this to us, towards our friend. They have a whole list of things. They said, we don't care what the tax tariff is. You can't sell those products in Canada. So they want to protect their products completely, 100%, while they're taxing us exorbitant amounts in the form of their tariffs. So let's go on down, and I want to basically show you this slide right here. Money is coming in, and it's going to offset the taxes that you're going to pay short term. But if we really want massive amounts of money to come in, we have to make Trump's tariffs permanent. So here's what's happening in a very iffy market. Trump's in. If they assassinate him next week, or if he doesn't get it up, he's going to try to run for a third term if he can. Anyway, here's what happens. Just in the few days he's been in, less than 100 days, Japan came to the table and said, we're going to give you $1 trillion and we're going to build automobile factories in America. And UEA came in and said, we're going to give you 1.4 trillion. And Saudi Arabia came in and said, we're going to give you, let's say, 60 trillion. And Honda came in and said, we're going to give you 21 billion. And Apple said, we're going to give you 50 billion. And NVIDIA said, we're going to give you 100+ billion. SoftBank said, we're going to give you 100 billion. Johnson and Johnson Medical said they're going to give us 27 billion. And Merck said they're going to give us a billion. And GE Aerospace said they're going to give us a billion. And that's in a very, very tenuous market where we don't know how long these tax cuts are going to last. If the government were to come in, pass a tax bill, say we're going to renew Trump's tax bill, but we're going to make it permanent. Now CEOs and corporations can look out and say, what happened to China is going to happen to America. China just went up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and the money flowed in from all over the world, and manufacturing went to China. If Trump makes these taxes permanent, these tax cuts permanent, this is nothing, absolutely nothing. We will see.
Well, and let me just say, the money that you're hearing all these people giving, the trillion or the billion or Apple and Saudi Arabia, and that was to build plants here. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
So I just wanted to make people aware that that's about them coming here, building plants. So instead of Apple being over in China, Apple will be here in America. They'll be building cars here. I think there was 90,000 manufacturing companies when Carter, did what he did with China, that left America and went overseas. Is that the number?
Yep. And now what happens? The manufacturing comes back, and when we were under Biden, he kept talking about, oh, we're adding all these jobs, right? Well, they were in the service industry. They're low paying jobs. And manufacturing is going through a metamorphosis. The blue collar industry is no longer what it was. It's not people who are not educated, who maybe come over from the illegal immigrants. Basically, it's people who are brilliant, who are bright, and those jobs pay a fortune. For example, if you work in the nanotechnology industry, that's a blue collar job. You know what the average starting salary is? $95,000 a year. So these are high paying jobs that are coming back, and that's going to stimulate the economy far more than it's going to cost us because of the short term where we're going to pay more for a few products. And once we get all this money coming in, guess what he's telling us what he's going to do. He's saying we are going to move from the Internal Revenue Service. So if he gets rid of that, that means you just got a 35% tax reduction. And we're going to what? To an external tax system. And what's that internal tax system on? It's based on tariffs, and it's based upon the money, the trillions of dollars that are coming in. And he said to induce these people to come, he said, we're going to change the tax laws. We're going to allow you to bring money into the country and not tax you to the point that you have to hold it outside of the country. And anybody who brings $1 billion, 1 billion, we're going to cut through all of the red tape, and you're going to get all the permits you need to start building your factory immediately, and all the assistance you need. So you have a choice. If you want to obstruct us, you can basically build your products anywhere you want, and we will tariff you. If you want to come to America, you'll have some of the lowest taxes in the world, and we won't tariff you. So basically, the smart money, even in this nebulous environment, is coming to America because they can see China is in real trouble. And that's something we should talk about before we go on. But let's see where you wanted to redirect this to for right now.
Yeah, do you still want the slide up on the screen?
No, I think we don't need it.
Yeah. Well, the situation is that when they bring all these different manufacturing over here, just like what happened when Carter ended up moving everything out of here and over to China, it was a boom. But now, because we've done shows about this, China, tell us a little bit about the statistics of what is happening in China. There's a lot of unemployment. There's a lot of unrest among the young people. I mean, they're in a bad, dire situation. So
before I answer that, I want to tell you what the narrative is coming from the mainstream media. It's exactly the opposite of what you just said. So I want to debunk that before I answer your question. Basically, they're saying this is going to backfire. Trump isn't going to have the leverage to do it, and China doesn't need America. That's what J.C. Ping is saying, and so basically, for show, they've done some kind of a trade deal with the EU, and they're saying, we'll just replace the lost business that we have with America with, say, the EU or other countries. But what people need to understand is Nobody in this world, no country wants to see China be the leader of the world because it won't be called the free world. So what's happening in China is what would come here if they absolutely drive us into bankruptcy. And what do you have? Facial recognition in every corner. What do you have? You have a social credit score. What do you have along with that? You have no rights at all. And if you have the wrong beliefs religiously, you're put, like the Uyghurs, you're put in prison and your organs are sold for a profit. I mean, imagine that. They come in and say, we need a kidney today. Step to the front of the line, please. So basically, they basically can tell you that you can't travel, that you can't buy, you can't sell. It's the formation of the beast system, and they're moving towards a central bank digital currency that can be programmed so they can basically don't even have to have a piece of legislation, write a law. They can just tell you what you can buy and can't buy. That's what we don't want. Now, what's happening in China? That's to answer your specific things coming here, and it's becoming very rapidly the new Detroit. Detroit used to be the hub of manufacturing for the United States, and now all those factories are shut down. They're rotting. They're in decay. If we get a manufacturing, well, when we get the manufacturing boom, they're going to have to be bulldozed and whole new factories built. So there's massive numbers. For example, Foxconn. Foxconn is the largest manufacturing single factory in the world. 100,000 people. They're taking it out of China and moving it to 5 different countries. Now, let's look at what I said about nobody wants China to be the leader of the world. So, as of today, the latest number, I think, is 196 nations in the world. You know how many step to the table and say we want to talk to Trump and negotiate? 130. You know which ones have actually totally capitulated? 2 that screamed the worst. Mexico and Canada have capitulated, and so is Israel and some others. But here's your geopolitical tell. The other ones that completely capitulated, all are neighbors of China: India, Taiwan, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Japan, because they know that their neighbor called China is their enemy and the enemy of the world. And so when you listen to these newscasters say this is going to backfire on Trump because people have just come out and do business with China, no. Let's take another country, Brazil. We think when two nations or 3 nations or 5 nations, let's call that BRICS, is doing something together, that they're arm in arm, that they're in sync, that they want the same thing. There are no allegiances in the political arena. There's only opportunity. And so let's take BRICS. BRICS is
Well, and I
Brazil.
just want to interject before you get into BRICS, because I wanted to interject something earlier. In regards to how America is responding to China, or if we think, oh well, what is China going to do? I've been to China, and I was in Shanghai, and
So have
actually I spoke in some of the underground churches,
Mm.
and I know a pastor there that literally they actually deported him. They were going to throw him. They threw his father-in-law in prison. I mean, as you mentioned, there's people that are dying, and the underground church is praying for America. They're praying
Mhm.
for us right now because they know how dire it is. I do believe there's going to be God is going to do something with China. When Mao went in there, and literally there was millions of them that were killed and murdered, and how many people were murdered under Mao? You think?
67 million. Well, they technically weren't murdered. They starved to death.
Well, they were murdered. So what I'm saying is
Yes, they were murdered.
there is a revolution undertaking in China, and
Yes.
most of the young people and the people in China don't want to be in China and under their regime.
That's
So
right.
anyway, I just wanted to add that little bit in earlier. But
Okay, so
anyway, keep going
I
about
still
BRICS.
haven't answered your question, but back to BRICS. Brazil says, okay, we're in BRICS, but you know what? We're not really a friend of China because they have deindustrialized us, just like they did the United States. And India is the same way. Yeah, we're in there because we have an ulterior motive, but we're not a friend of China. So basically, nobody wants China. So forget that. That's an absolute oxymoron. Now, what's happening in China? To answer your question, factories are leaving by the droves. They're basically being shuttered up just like the United States did. The people have lost all hope. Basically, they had years and years and years of the one-child policy. And now they have way more men than they have women, and that's caused social unrest in the country. And the people didn't have the variety of the portfolio of investments that we have available to us here. So about the only thing they could invest in is they could buy gold or they could buy real estate. And most of them bought real estate because it was going up, 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 up because of a Ponzi scheme that they had going. Well, now, depending on which big city in China you're in, it's fallen by 70 to 90%. And that represented the life savings of most people. Now, add to that unemployment is about 40%, and add to that the college kids that came out thinking they were going to have great jobs, they're called ant people. They're living generally two people to a little one-room apartment, and they're working. If you're working in the blue-collar industry and you're one of these college graduates, you work from 9 in the morning till 9 at night, 6 days a week. I don't know what you call that. I call that slavery. So the people are in absolute, it's like Tiananmen Square, boiled and boiled and boiled, and they killed all those kids in that square. Right now, there's more revolts going on in China than there's ever been. And their great hope, their 100-year plan, that was the Belt and Road Initiative, where they were going to go into the Middle East and Africa and South America and snatch up all the natural resources. Well, guess what? Trump is on the hunt for natural resources, right? So what happened to that Belt and Road Initiative? They took advantage of people. They loaned them money. They built infrastructure, and then they saw to it that they defaulted, and they took the infrastructure. So people got wise. Basically, because China no longer has money, all those projects have defaulted, and all those people have left the Belt and Road Initiative, leaving the Middle East, Africa, and South America open territory for Donald Trump to go in and get the minerals we need to have the boom that we're going to have. And guess what? I'm going to tell you something else about China. Everybody said, you can't compete against China. You can't compete against China. Their advantage is gone completely. It was what? It was one thing. They had the cheapest labor in the world, and everything was made initially by hand. And now even the textile industry that went over there almost exclusively, robots now have tactile feel. They can now manufacture clothing even. And so basically, they're no longer the cheapest labor force in the world. And people are going to Thailand and Cambodia, leaving there and going over there to work. And basically, they don't even have enough people to fill their factories because they had the one child policy and they took it too far. And now they're saying, well, you can have two kids. People didn't have them. You can have 3 kids. We'll give you financial benefits. The people don't want to have children because it's a slavery system. So basically, China is falling, the world is against it, and the world is with the United States of America and with Donald Trump.
Well,
and with
let me just ask one question then that's really not about terrorists. When somebody is that desperate then with everything going down economically, but they still have a very strong military base, what would make it where China wouldn't attack America? You know what I'm saying? Because it's even in the Bible. I mean, we're not trying to fearmonger here. And we know that, this is where the prayer comes in. But wouldn't it seem like this would be a good initiative that China would try to attack us? Or, you know what I mean?
Well, what did they say back in Africa in the day? There's no predator more dangerous than a lion that's been wounded in the bush. And in this instance, there's no predator more dangerous than a China that's on the brink of financial collapse. So my question back to you rhetorically is, how do you get into the mind of a madman? How do you get into the mind of people who are desperate? So if they feel desperate enough, they just might try to do it. But I could do a whole show on why they're not going to attack Taiwan, for example, and why they're probably not going to attack the United States. I'll just give you a couple of little indicators. India has a pretty good navy right now. So does Japan. They're basically building up their forces, and they have something that the world has been trying to develop for 50 years. Japan just did a live test of something called a railgun. And let me give you an idea what that means. That means that a naval ship setting out to sea can shoot a port from 14 miles away. And a railgun can shoot it from 120 miles away. And they have supersonic missiles. And basically, Taiwan has supersonic missiles, and in 19 minutes they could blow up the Three Gorges Dam. And if they went into Taiwan, I can tell you what history says. When a nation is losing, they enact a scorched earth policy, and probably the Chinese are smart enough to know this. In all probability, Taiwan would blow up all of the semiconductor plants, and the war would be for nothing. And then the big gamble, is can they come against the United States? Do they really know what technology we have? So yes, there's always that opportunity or that I shouldn't say opportunity, the chance that they're going to attack us, but the world is on our side, because nobody in the world wants to see China become their slave masters. So will they attack us? I don't
And
know.
I agree with you on that, but also our military has been depleted under Biden. And a lot of people, remember, they were making everyone take the jab. I know many that walked away because they knew it was a bioweapon. And
Mhm.
I've interviewed, Pete Chambers, Lieutenant Colonel Doc Pete Chambers. He basically was told his men, I have to give them informed consent. He was commanded by his superior officer to not tell them what was in the jab. And he said, no, that's an illegal order. He said, I need to give them informed consent. So right now, President Trump is building back up the military. I think
Mhm.
people are signing up probably in droves, right? I
They
mean,
are.
and aren't they getting back pay for when they were let go?
If they come back, they're getting back pay from the point they left. Remember Muhammad Ali,
Yeah,
float like a butterfly, sting like a bee? War's changed. War is no longer dependent upon the number of physical soldiers you have. War is
yeah.
fought with a camera and a drone from 1,000 miles away, and
Mm.
it's fought. The Why is Russia having such trouble? Because they're using outdated technology. They're sending $1 million missiles, and what's Ukraine doing? They're sending $12,000 drones that have a wing of 6 drones under them that go drop a bomb on an oil well or whatever. And so basically, that's what Taiwan has. They have the lightning fast, low cost rates. We have technology that the world doesn't have. I mean, China boasts of everything it has because they really are weaker than we think they are, and they want us to think we're strong. So what does the really powerhouse do? It keeps its mouth shut and doesn't tell anybody. And I don't think that there's much chance in my mind. Let's take their Navy, for example. Do they have more ships than us? Yep. Is that really advantage? Not necessarily, because the majority of their ships are diesel with a range of about 12 to 1,500 miles. Almost all of our Navy is nuclear with worldwide reach, and we have bases all over the world. And so I don't think myself or very many people really know what America has, but I'm not that afraid. If they attack us, I think that we'll find that we have weapons that we could never even dream of. But anyway, that's off the topic of tariffs. So let's try to get back. So what's your next question?
Well, and so, like we talked about earlier, a lot of people watching don't understand the tariffs. You've explained a little bit about where China is economically, why
Mhm.
what happened with Carter, how we lost a lot of our manufacturing in implementing these tariffs. Because we've only got about 10 more minutes on the show left.
Okay.
Let's wrap it up and kind of give a summation of, what's going on with the tariffs and how this is going to, I believe, benefit America, and it's going to turn our nation around into be
Okay.
where we are going to be great again.
Well, if we're going to be great, we have to win this war, this tariff war, and we have to stay the course with Donald Trump. We have to understand it's going to be a little painful. So I want to precursor to your question by giving you some numbers here. Trump never goes into a battle unless he knows he's got the winning hand. So I'm going to read you off some numbers. When he sat down with Mexico, remember they capitulated just like that, and so did Canada. He said to him, well, we got $25 trillion GDP. What's yours? Mexico, 1.4. Canada, 2.5. Who has advantage? America. And then we go on down, and people are saying, well, Trump, he's trying to gouge all the nations. So I want to give you some facts. We are the ones being gouged. We're the ones that have been bled dry. We had a $660 billion national debt when Carter opened trade with China, and now we have a $36 trillion debt, and it's largely because of abuses in trade. So here's a half a dozen of the biggest nations in the world and what they charge us in tariffs versus what we charge them. China charges us 67%. We charge them 34. Taiwan 64, us 32. Malaysia 47, us 24. South Africa, them 69, us 30. India, them 52, us 25. Israel 36, 33, us 17. Switzerland 61, us 31. The Philippines 34, us 17. The European Union 39, us 20. Vietnam 90, us 46. So Trump is not trying to gouge this. Is all he's trying to do is say the world has taken advantage of America because they think that we're the superpower. And Trump is saying we're bleeding out. America is on the brink of financial collapse. So now, what's going to happen? We have to look at the long game. It may be 6 months. It may be a year. The stock market, in my opinion, has to collapse because we have to take control away from the global financial elite. Money is power. What do they say? He who controls money controls the world, because you can buy all the politicians you want, all the newscasters you want, all the influence and power in the world. So we have to have a financial collapse. But Trump has figured out a way to make it minimally painful and for us to come out on top. He has said that basically we are going to retain the status not of the sole reserve currency, but the dominant reserve currency. He's going to get us out from the Federal Reserve. He's probably going to get us out from the UN, which is a globalist entity. He is going to let the fiat dollar die. He's going to put us on a commodity-backed system. He said we're going to be the crypto capital of the world. We're going to have a stable coin. It's going to be backed by gold. We're going to have ETFs, and he's going to give tax incentives to Americans. If you go crypto from a country in America, you probably, if he can get it through, you won't pay any capital gains if you make a huge profit. That's unbelievable. And so he's positioned us for the fall. That has to happen to get rid of our primary enemy, the global financial elite. But he's giving us a cushion to land on, and then and that's basically a commodity-backed system. We will be part of BRICS before it's over. All the nations of the world will be off of fiat currencies. They won't be able to inflate it, to deflate it, to cause stagflation, to cause wage suppression, to cause financial collapses, because God's kingdom is based on commodities, and they cannot be controlled and they cannot be manipulated. So that's the trajectory Trump is taking.
I just want to interject because today, even though we're filming this, we're recording it on April 15th, which is the day, if you look back, when the Titanic went down. It was on April 14th. When President Lincoln got assassinated, when they shot at him, was April 14th, Good Friday. When the ship went down, Titanic, it was April 15th. There was 3 businessmen on that Titanic that was against the Federal Reserve. They were all on the Titanic. And so when do we pay our taxes? April 15th, the day that we're recording this. So it was, the Titanic was a takedown of the deep state too. And it was after that, you know the story, that the Federal Reserve was passed, and they've controlled both sides of, the wars. They've manipulated our money. It's, the creature of Jekyll Island talks about how these bankers basically manipulated this whole system at that weekend in Jekyll Island and put this whole scheme together. And so Trump is going to literally, and of course, the kingdom, God is bringing it forward. So we're going to see things turn around. So I think it's just interesting today, being the show is on April 15th that we're recording it. So, I
don't know if what you said was a misspeak or what, but basically when the Titanic went down, it wasn't the decline of the global financial elite. It was they're stepping into power, because the men who died on the Titanic were against the Federal Reserve.
Right.
And the minute they died, you said it the opposite. Basically, the minute they died, we got the Federal Reserve and we became part of a debt system that's resulted now in a $36 trillion national debt. I mean, I do that once in a while too. I say one thing and mean another. So anyway.
Well, basically, I was saying that there was 3 men that were on that ship that were against the Federal Reserve system. Right. That died in the Titanic. And so if I spoke it out wrong, but the system and the situation being is that, and one of my friends is very close with James Cameron, and the movie The Titanic, which actually won 11 Academy Awards in 1998, popularized movie, that was all pretty much, I'm sure they didn't have enough lifeboats. So we're in a situation, everybody, as we're coming to a close, and I'm going to give you I feel the Holy Spirit on this one right now. We're coming into a situation, everybody, that it looks like the Titanic, we're going to hit an iceberg, but we now have to trust God. We need to pray, as it's Second Chronicles 7:14. It says, if God's people, if we will pray, humble ourselves, seek his face, but lastly, turn from our wicked ways, then God said, I will hear from heaven, heal our land. Our land being healed. And all this stuff with Trump and tariffs, it's all good, but really the hearts of the people are the things that have to change. And you know what I mean? What we're trying to do is get you into a mindset that you're not going to be afraid what's going to happen, because the mainstream media has been used, the legacy media, to try to be so brainwash the people and put them into fear. And so right now we're trying to do this show to show you that you don't have to be afraid, that you can trust in the plan, which is trusting in God's plan, Jeremiah 29:11. So anyway, so Larry, as we wrap up the show today, why don't you kind of just give, your closing thoughts and statements about, where we are with the tariff, why people need not to be afraid. But the main reason we have to trust in God, you know what I mean? Not so much trusting in Trump, but trusting in God. Go ahead.
What you just said, basically, I want to bring up the slide about my book, because that's the key to not being afraid. If you'll bring that up, basically, not that one, bring the other one up. The one about book one. There you go. So what you were saying, Meri, here's the key to not being afraid. The truth will set you free. When I died in 1968, God said, you're going to spend your life cramming your head full of knowledge, so that when the time comes, you can tell the people the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It'll open their eyes and it'll set them free. So what this book is, it's a book about God. It's a book of history. It's a book that teaches you what made America great, how we lost it, how we're getting it back, and what we have to do to keep it. We're in a pivotal crisis in this country, where America could fall, never to come back. One nation is going to fall, either China or the United States. And my bet is overwhelmingly on China. But if we are going to win, we need to stand united with Trump. We can't listen to all the rhetoric and lies that they're telling us about what the tariff is going to do. It's going to make America greater than it's ever been. That's what it did in the past. That's what it did for India. Matter of fact, that's how India got their freedom, is with tariffs and with boycotting the British Empire. That's how we're going to get our country back and get our sovereignty back. And you need to know, because when you know the truth, there's no room for fear. You're going to understand we're God's children, and you're going to understand what Trump is doing, and he's going to bring back trade into America. And his simple edict to these people is, here's your choice. If you don't want to come here, then you can pay the tariffs. If you want to manufacture your products here, then there's no tariffs. You'll have some of the lowest taxes in the world, and you'll have unimpeded access to the largest economy in the world. One of the other things about China is, with their one-child policy, with their unemployment, with all the things we talked about a minute ago, they have utterly, completely, and absolutely lost their domestic marketplace. It's gone. Those people have no money, and there's no replacement for that. And the nations of the world are not going to run to their door. So America has the clout. America is going to win. And what will happen is we're going to have a financial collapse, a controlled collapse, taking away the money from the global elite. The federal income tax is going to be taken away. We're going to go back to a sales tax. We're going to have full employment with really high-paying jobs. And America is going to end up with the promise that Trump gave us. He's going to restore America to greatness. It'll be greater than ever. And the world is praying for America. They want America to be the victor, because they believe that even though we've done some bad things, We are the fairest, most honest, most innovative nation in the entire world. So the world is rallying around us. Now, what we've got to do is rally around Donald Trump, and that's exactly how India got their freedom. They rallied around Gandhi. They boycotted Britain, and they basically imposed tariffs on Britain, and they came out and got their freedom. That's exactly what Trump is parroting. He's parroting what India did to get their freedom, and what we did to become the greatest superpower in the world. The youngest nation in the world became the greatest superpower. What's happening is going to bring China down, the UN down, the Fed down, and we're going to basically get a level playing field with every nation in the world. And if we get these tax cuts made permanent, then you're going to see trillions of dollars come in. We'll pay the national debt off, and then a restored economy of the United States of America will innovate the world out of this. We have some 6,000 patents, and now one of the key things to ask, can we compete against China? Their one advantage is gone. They don't have the labor force anymore, and so we're now in a race for energy, for new technologies, and America has some 6,000 patents that were suppressed during the Industrial Revolution, and we're now going to get access to them. We're going to be basically having factories that are run with AI and with robotics, etc. And yes, that's going to cause some jobs to be lost, but the amount of jobs that are going to be coming into America are more than going to make up for that. We're going to have peace and prosperity, and all hinges on staying the course with Donald Trump. The rest of the world has a better understanding what Donald Trump is doing than we do, because we don't get the truth in our media. So basically, to sum it up, if it made America great, if it made India great, what Donald Trump is doing is the same thing they did. It will make America greater than ever. And here's what it'll lead to. Eisenhower said that is there any man, is there any woman, is there any child that doesn't understand the principal cause of war is disparity between two nations? So the principal cause of debt is perpetual war and taxes. And both of those are going to be relieved by what Donald Trump is doing, because all nations are going to function at relative parity. So that's the outcome. Just stay the course. I ask you to buy this book so that you can be informed, and the benefits you'll get is your mind will be at peace, and you'll also have something you can share with your children so that they can get the truth. And that last slide, if you bring it up just real quick, I've got a new book coming out, and I have to pay $15,000 because when you tell the truth, the publishers won't work with you. I have to have this book perfect because it has to go into the schools so we can get our children's education system back. And one of the first things Trump did is get rid of the federal education department. We are 2/3 of the way towards the goal. So if anybody has a couple of extra dollars, I'd really appreciate you making a small purchase. And the book is already in queue. It should be out probably in September. So with that, Meri, why don't you wrap us up?
Are they basically pre-ordering the book?
No, not at this point. No. We may do that later. I want to wait till we're close, and I know that whatever date I tell you is going to be good. But we're in the queue, so I gave her I have to pay it in 3 payments. I gave her the first payment. We're in the queue. I have the money from the GoFundMe for the second payment, so we're really only looking to get the money for the third payment. It's about $4,500, and then we're home free. And God will give it. I know that. I write these books. I put them aside, and God's never let me down yet. The first book is every major publisher turned me down, and later Harrison House called me, said, Mr. Ballard, stop trying. None of them are going to let you publish this book. But I work for Harrison House. I know this industry. I've got a small chain of Christian bookstores. Don't worry about it. I'm going to publish the book for you for nothing. But she's had some health issues, and she's not in a position to help me now. But God is, and God will get this book out. And between the book that's already out and this book, it's going to be a godsend for you to make you not be afraid, and for your children to know the truth. So, Meri, why don't you wrap us up?
Okay. Well, let's take that off the screen. Thank you, Larry, for coming on. And thank you for watching. Now is the time. We are in a position that, God is bringing in this new thing right now where we're going to see the greatest show on earth. And so just, put us both up in the screen bigger, Rena. There. Yeah, we've got a new admin. We're training new people here. And so it's all good. We've got a great
she's doing a good job.
Yeah, yeah, she is. So anyway, you know, that's why we're all in training. And this is training day, just like before war, you know, you go into boot camp. And literally, so often the last 5 years, Larry, and many of you watching, it's been very challenging time. In fact, at the beginning of COVID, God spoke to me as I wrapped this up and said, COVID-19 is Christ overcoming victory in disease, Psalm 19. And so God has not left us. Many times when I was going through some very challenging times, I'm out here in Los Angeles. We're building a studio to rival Disney. We're in the, you know, coming against sex trafficking in America with my film Freedom Cry. And I would so often, sometimes you'd be kind of in a situation where you were almost distraught. But we pray, and then the Lord would speak to me, Larry, and when I would hear his voice say, stay the course, hold the line.
Mhm.
So that's what he's saying to us today. Stay the course, hold the line. Everything is going to be fine. And we're coming into a season, no longer confinement, but alignment. And so God is telling us to believe in him. He is going to wash our nation and free us from sin and bring us into a time that we will win, for the greatest time on earth is here. He says he wants you to rise up and not to fear, but as this week, God said, you're going to celebrate that my son, who is great, gave his life so that you could be free. This is a time of victory in history. So God said, don't lose heart, don't lose hope. This isn't the season just to cope, but you're going to come into a time that you will see that this will be the key for victory, to trust in me, the Lord. And that will be your reward when you see America turn it back around. And the Lord said, those who are lost will now be found. And so, Lord, we thank you as we pray for everybody, Lord, right now listening, that, Lord, first of all, we pray against any spirit of fear. Lord, we just come against fear, and we ask you, Lord, that you would give them faith. And even as Jesus died on the cross and he said, it is finished, and the disciples all scattered because it looked like, you know, their mentor, their rabbi, you know, that they believed in was dead. But then I feel God's heart. 3 days later, he rose, and it was like extreme jubilee, extreme, you know, elation. That's what I believe is going to come to this nation. So, Lord, I thank you as we close it out now. Lord, we're going to say, holy cow, look what the Lord has done. The gates are open. It's time to run. So listen, if you could please, on my website, you know, is mericrouley.com. You know, I have Meri's merch. I don't really push my merchandise or my books often, but I have 3 books. One of them is When God Speaks, A Woman's Journey of Faith, that goes into all my story about my how I got involved with, you know, becoming a Christian and the different things that God's having me do, including the Youth Wave Foundation and the Destiny Studios. But then I have my book, Freedom Cry, about women fighting trafficking. And actually, my book called The Prodigal, about the motion picture we're making. So please go to my website. You could also, you know, purchase my books, and that'd be awesome. So listen, please share this with as many people as you can. And please like and subscribe or follow and hit the notification bell, because that way you'll be alerted when we have a new show. And really, if everyone shares with 5 people, I can go viral. They've actually suppressed a lot of my stuff. And I believe that God is going to really release us into new markets and new people that have never heard us before, Larry. So thanks, Larry, for coming on. Thanks for watching. Now
Thank you,
is the
Meri.
best time to be alive. And we'll see you soon. God bless.
God bless.